Filipino Psychology, or Sikolohiyang Pilipino, in Filipino, is defined as the psychology rooted on the experience, ideas, and cultural orientation of the Filipinos. It is regulated by the Pambansang Samahan Sikolohiyang Pilipino in English, which was established in 1975 by Virgilio Enriquez, regarded by many as the father of Filipino psychology. Basic orientation and context. Filipino psychology is usually thought of as a branch of Asian psychology, the placement, determined primarily on culture. However, there is an ongoing debate on the makeup of Philippine culture, because this will generally determine whether Philippine psychology is to be placed under the realms of either Asian psychology or Western psychology. The view of Philippine psychology is largely post-colonial and is seen as a kind of liberation psychology. 4 traditions. Zhu Salazar, a historian, identified 4 traditions upon which Philippine psychology is rooted: academic scientific psychology or academico-scientifical na Sikolohiya, Western tradition. This follows the tradition of Wilhelm Wundt in 1876 and is essentially the American-oriented Western psychology being studied in the Philippines. Academic philosophic psychology or academico-philosophiya na Sikolohiya, Western tradition. This was started by priest professors at the University of Santo Tomas. This tradition is mainly focused on what is called rational psychology. Ethnic psychology or tal na Sikolohiya, this is the tradition on which Philippine psychology is primarily based. This refers to the indigenous concepts that are studied using indigenous psychological orientation and methodologies. Psychomedical religious psychology or Sikolohiyang psychomedical, the tradition that fuses native healing techniques and explains it in an indigenous religious context. A social scientist suggested that many poor Filipinos are considered superstitious as a result of Catholic dogmatism, characterized by a vague combination of animism and Catholic beliefs. The majority of Filipinos are poor and religion has become an important facet of life, to the extent that some disbelieve in science. Many foreigners look down on Filipinos, going as far as calling them slaves. That is why when working as domestic helpers, many Filipinos report cases of work-related abuse. Basic tenets, core value or kapwa, meaning togetherness, is the core construct of Filipino psychology. Kapwa refers to community. Not doing things alone. Kapwa has 2 categories, abang tao and hindi abang tao. Filipinos value conformity because unlike non-Asian countries, its culture is predominantly Confucian. This runs into conflict with individualism which was brought about by Western colonialism. Abang tao. There are 5 domains in this construct: pakikitungo civility, in Confucian ethics, right behavior meant right demeanor towards authorities. Pakikisalamaha, active mixing. This is a social value that is primarily communitarian and Confucian. It espouses the ability to adapt. Pakikilahok, active joining. This translates to participation of the entire community to help a person. Pakikibagao, conformity. This runs into conflict with individuality which many Filipinos in fact willingly throw away in favor of conformity with demands of those who are in charge. Pakikisama, being united with the group. Hindi abang tao. There are 3 domains in this construct: pakikipagpalagain loob, act of mutual trust; pakikisangkot, act of joining others; pakikipagkaisa, being one with others. Pivotal interpersonal value, pakiramdam, shared inner perceptions. Filipinos use damdam, or the inner perception of others' emotions, as a basic tool to guide his dealings with other people. Linking socio-personal value, kagandahang loob, shared humanity. This refers to being able to help other people in dire need due to a perception of being together as a part of one Filipino humanity. Accommodative surface values, hiya, loosely translated as shame by most Western psychologists, hiya is actually sense of propriety. Utang na loob, norm of reciprocity. Filipinos are expected by their neighbors to return favor sa euro whether these were asked for or no to euro, when it is needed or wanted. Pakikisama and pakikipagkapwa, smooth interpersonal relationship, or SIR, as coined by Lynch. This attitude is primarily guided by conformity with the majority. Confrontative surface values, bahala na translates literally as leave it up to God, and it is used as an expression, almost universally, in Filipino culture. Filipinos engage in the bahala na attitude as a culture-influenced adaptive coping strategy when faced with challenging situations. Lakas ng loob. This attitude is characterized by being courageous in the midst of problems and uncertainties. Pakikibaka, literally in English, it means concurrent clashes. It refers to the ability of the Filipino to undertake revolutions and uprisings against a common enemy. Societal values, Krangalan, loosely translated to dignity. This actually refers to what other people see in a person and how they use that information to make a stand or judge about his/her worth. Parai, the external aspect of dignity, may refer to how other people judge a person of his/her worth. This compels a common Filipino to conform to social norms, regardless how obsolete they are. Dangle, the internal aspect of dignity, may refer to how a person judges his own worth. Katarangan, loosely translated to justice, this actually refers to equity in giving rewards to a person. Kalayan, freedom and mobility. Ironically, this may clash with the less important value of pagkikisama or pagkikabagaw. Approaches and methods. Approaches, or lapit, and methods, or pamaraan, in Filipino psychology are different from that of Western psychology. In Filipino psychology, the subjects, or participants, called kalohok, are considered as equal in status to the researcher. The participants are included in the research as a group, and not as individuals, hence, an umpukan, or natural cluster, is required to serve as the participants, per se. The researcher is introduced to a natural cluster by a tuli, who is a part of the umpukan and is a well-respected man in the community. Some of the approaches and methods used in Filipino psychology are pakikipagkwentuhan. In this method, the researcher engages in a storytelling with an umpukan. The researcher merely serves as the facilitator, while the kalohok or participants are the one who are to talk. The term cuento, from the Spanish word cuento, literally means to tell a story. Panunuluyan, in this method, the researcher stays in the home of his kalohok or participant while he conducts the research with consent by the host family, whose head serves as the tuli to an umpukan. The term daloy, which is the root word of the term panunuluyan, literally means to go in. Pagdadalaw. In this method, the researcher occasionally visits the house of his host or tuli, as opposed to staying in the house. The term dalaw literally means visit. Pagchitanung. In this method, the researcher undergoes a kind of questioning session with his kalohok or participants. In this method, however, lead questions are not supposed to be asked. Instead, the questions to be asked are supposed to have been derived from the kalohok's answers themselves. The word tanong literally means question. Pakikaramdam, in this approach, the researcher uses entirely his/her own feelings or emotions to justify if his participants or kalohok are ready to be part of his research or not. The term damdam literally means inner perception of emotions. Psychopathology, Filipino psychopathology, or Psychopathology in Filipino, from Spanish Psychopathology, is the study of abnormal psychology in the Filipino context. Several mental disorders have been identified that can be found only in the Philippines or in other nations with which Filipinos share racial connections. Examples of such are, Amok Malayan mood disorder, more aptly called Austronesian mood disorder, in which a person suddenly loses control of himself and goes into a killing frenzy, after which he/she hallucinates and falls into a trance. After he/she wakes up, he has absolutely no memory of the event. Bangungot, a relatively common occurrence in which a person suddenly loses control of his respiration and digestion, and falls into a coma and ultimately to death. The person is believed to dream of falling into a deep abyss at the onset of his death. This syndrome has been repeatedly linked to Thailand's Brigada syndrome and to the ingestion of rice. However, no such medical ties have been proven. Manifestation of universal mental disorders. Filipino psychopathology also refers to the different manifestations of mental disorders in Filipino people. One example of such is the manifestation of depression and schizophrenia in Filipinos, which are for the most part, less violent. Psychomedicine and faith healers. Filipino psychomedicine, or psychomedical na Sikolohiya in Filipino, is the application of basic psychology to native healing practices loosely considered as medicine. These practices are closely tied to the faith healers, as well as to the native pagan priestesses like the Babalan or Catalonan, who were suppressed by the Spaniards during their colonization of the Philippines. Examples of such practices include, Hilit, the use of massage to aid a pregnant mother in the delivery of her child. Kulam, hex or bewitchment. Lihi, an intense craving for something or someone during pregnancy. Faith healers or Manghilat testify that if the craving is not satisfied, abnormality of the child may result. Pasma, a concept that explains how init and lamig together can result in illness, especially rheumatism. Cysto, soul flight. Derived from Latin American traditions. Pagtators, a method of diagnosing illness where an alum is ritualistically used by the albulario or medicine man for diagnosis of a variety of health conditions. The tors is used to cross the forehead and other suspicious or ailing parts of the body as prayers are being whispered. It is then placed on glowing embers, removed when it starts to crack, then transferred to a small receptacle of water. As it cools, its softened form spreads on the water surface and assumes a shape that may suggest the cause of the illness, often one of several indigenous forces, dwarfs, devils or other evil spirits. The water in the vehicle is then used to anoint the ailing part or parts of the body to counteract the evil forces or illness. The tors is then discarded and thrown westward, preferably into the setting sun. Usog, a concept that explains how a baby who has been greeted by a stranger acquires a mysterious illness. Apparently derived from the Spanish tradition of mal de ojo. Garbacent or Gabaa, the Visayan concept of negative karma. Organizations, Pambansang Samahan sa Sikolohiyang Pilipino, Bukluran sa Sikolohiyang Pilipino, Tatsulak, see also, Asian Psychology, Filipino Values, Men in the Philippines, Women in the Philippines, Loop, Tampo, Mental Health Care in the Philippines, Filipino/American Post-Colonial Psychology by E.J.R. David, references, Kazuga, S., Rodius, A., and Vogel, E. The Experience of the Bahala Now Attitude Among Filipino Athletes in International Sporting Competition. John F. Kennedy University, Pleasant Hill, California. ISBN 978-126-745-839-1, Enriquez, B. Indigenous Psychology and National Consciousness Chapters 1, 2, 3 and 6 in From Colonial to Liberation Psychology, The Philippine Experience. De La Salle University Books, Das Maria Plus or Minus As, Cavite. ISBN 971-542-002-8, Enriquez, B. Sikolohiyang Pilipino, Perspectivo at Diaroxy pages 5-21. Sikolohiyang Pilipino, Teoria, Metido, Agamit. Inadik niya Payfuar. Quezon City, University of the Philippines Press, 1995. Guanzon, M.A. Pagamit ng Pangkat na Psychological za Pilipinas, Kalagayan at MG Isayu pages 341-362 NASA New Directions in Indigenous Psychology, Sikolohiyang Pilipino, Isayu, Panana at Carlaman. Inedit Nina A. Aganan at M. A. David. Manila, National Bookstore. Ortiza, G. Pagkakapagkuntuhan, Isang Pamaraan ng Sama Samahang Pananaliksik, Pagpapato tuat Pagdalong za Sikolohiyang Pilipino Nasa PPATH Occasional Papers Series 1997, No. Ortiza, G. At D. Tuazan ang Pagmamasit Bilang Katyutabong Pamaraan ng Pananaliksik za Sikolohiya pages 74-90 Nasa Mga Piling Barbazaan za Panlarangang Pananaliksik. Tinapon niya Payfuar. Lunge Sod Quezon, Unibasitad ng Pilipinas. Payfuar, Arati Protatio Marcelino Sikolohiyang Pilipino, A Legacy of Virgilio G. Enriquez. Papal Na by NASA ZA International Association on Cross-Cultural Psychology Conference ZA Bellingham, Washington State, USA, 3 August 8, 1998. Full text at Blackwell Synergy and Engenta Connect, Pei-Fu R. Pagtatanong Tainong, Katutubong Matadong Pananaliksik pages 416 430 NASA New Directions in Indigenous Psychology, Sikolohiyang Pilipino, Isayu, Pananaat Kalaman. Inedit Nina A. Aganan at M. A. David. Manila, National Bookstore. Salazar, Z. Haya, Panlapi at Salata pages 288 to 296 NASA New Directions in Indigenous Psychology, Sikolohiyang Pilipino, Isayu, Pananaat Kalaman. Inedit Nina A. Aganan at M. A. David. Manila, National Bookstore. Star. Maria, Madeline and Carlo Magno. Dimensions of Filipino Negative Social Emotions, 7th Conference of the Asian Association of Social Psychology, July 25 to 28, 2007, Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, Malaysia, scribd.com, external links, Washington, Brad D. Understanding Nonverbal Communication of Filipinos, a Traditional Form of Literacy, Journal of Filipino Studies, California State University East Bay, Journal of Filipino Studies.com.